Cool. So after we created an initial version of our configuration for the metered billing accelerator in the portal, as I said, we are still missing a couple of bits. We miss the zip file, which contains our actually template with all the configuration, and we're missing the endpoint and for where notifications get published to. So when a customer purchases your application, if you specify a notification endpoint, then Azure Marketplace will basically inform you that an application has been deployed, or when customers delete the application, Microsoft will also notify you that the application doesn't exist any longer, right? So for this to happen, to create our zip file, let's go to our Visual Studio Code window. And by the way, I just saved the IDs which we created here into a small file here on my machine. So I remember all the identifiers we have in Entra and in Partner Center. So the first thing we do is we go to our Managed App folder. And inside this Managed App folder, let's just open this one in Bash, so to say. So I'm now going to run a couple of commands in the Windows subsystem for Linux rather than on the Windows side of the house. So in the Managed App folder, when we check it out, we have a build script. So Azure Marketplace currently only supports ARM-based templates, but I wanted to create the managed application using Bicep. And in order to facilitate this, I created a build script, which is basically a bash script, which is combining a couple of information snippets into a larger thing. So let's just orient ourselves inside the managed application to understand what's going on. The main template is supposed to combine the assets which we need for metered billing submission to the publisher. So basically sending the information from the managed application to our publisher backend and the actual managed application. So let's look at what the managed application is supposed to be. As a demonstration workload, I just picked a simple virtual machine. So in here, I have a Bicep template. So inside the managed app contents.bicep, we have a Bicep template for a virtual machine. So we have, SSH username and authentication information, a public DNS name, the virtual machine size, a location where it's going in, and a couple of bits and pieces which we are using to get information about the metered billing part into the virtual machine, because later we will be using the virtual machine to emit usage to the publisher side, which then aggregates that information and sends it forward to Microsoft. So inside this template, I have a couple of variables for things like different names for network interface cards, IP addresses, the machine, the VNet, and so on. I do have, network address range information and information which we need for the virtual machine itself. So public IP address, an NSG which allows us to do inbound port 22, which, for the sake of the experiment certainly works. In production, there is a strong encouragement not to open port 22 for secure shell, but something, more hidden or only expose it via VPN. We have our virtual network. We have the network interface card inside the VNet. We have a virtual machine which will be using a user-assigned managed identity, which comes in from the outside, by the way. So I forgot to say there is a user assigned managed identity which we inject from the outer template. And the rest is pretty standard. So we're just spinning up an Ubuntu 2004 instance here. The main template needs all the information necessary for the managed application. So this part is basically sent into our managed app content part of the template. But I am also leveraging a mechanism in Bicep by which I can load metered billing configuration or a variable from a JSON file in the local file system. So there are a couple of snippets, a couple of JSON files which matter in our case. So what matters here is the metering configuration. This metering configuration describes the publisher backend. So we will be hosting a REST endpoint in our ISV subscription to create service principals to allow us to submit meters into Event Hub over there. We will be having information about Key Vault on the publisher side, where we will inject a credential to talk to this endpoint here. And we will be having our Event Hub endpoint, where the managed application submits the usage information. We have information about the plan, and we do have information about the Partner Center ID. And this we already saw before, so the Partner Center ID, we need to grab this one. So the Partner Center ID blah 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 is this one, so I'm overwriting this part here with the information 3E something is our concrete ID from Partner Center. So just as a reminder, this came from here. This goes into the customer usage attribution ID. And now we need to do something useful with that information. So this goes into the plan. So our plan, by the way, I forgot, did I create a monthly plan or an annual plan? Let's just have a look here. So our plan setup, or the availability, I think it was a monthly plan. But I need to have the plan name as well. So let's put this in here. So the plan name is this one here. So let's take all that information and go here and modify the JSON file here accordingly. So our plan name goes in here. We do not have any waterfall dimensions. Just as a short example. So what sort of dimensions do we have? We can specify a dimension like this one here. It's a so-called, I call these things simple dimensions, which are pure pay-as-you-go dimensions. So I now move out that information snippet in here. So a pay-as-you-go dimension is a marketplace metered billing dimension where all the consumption is aggregated by the hour and directly sent to Microsoft for the full hour. There is no particular bookkeeping like, oh, so much was included and you already consumed so much and this is included and this is overage. All these things don't happen for that pay-as-you-go thing because I don't have an included attribute in here. The second dimension here is the demo video dimension with included widgets. So I'm putting this one in here, and let's just wrap the text. Wrap, toggle word wrap. So this dimension has 10 included in the monthly price. And we have an infinite dimension, so this has unlimited, so you will basically not be charged for it, but we can still submit usage to the metered billing accelerator for it. So now we transformed all that information. So 3 different types of dimension. 1 dimension which has nothing included in the monthly price. 1 dimension which has 10 widgets included in the monthly price, and 1 which has unlimited, infinite inclusion. The other thing, the other dimension which I have in the sample, but which we are not using here, is what I called a waterfall pricing. So this is equivalent to what Microsoft, for example, does with bandwidth pricing. So you might know that when you create an Azure subscription, inside that subscription, you have 100 GB of data transfer on a monthly basis outgoing for free. And after 100 GB, you fall into a new tier where you pay per gigabyte. And the more you transfer, the expensive, the cheaper each gigabyte gets, right? And so here, this is basically listing the tiers, right? So the first 100 are free. After 100, usage is basically aggregated and submitted into bandwidth tier 1, A. And after 10 terabyte, it's submitted into tier B. And after 40 additional terabytes, it's submitted into tier C, and so on. And after, it's basically adding up. So just this is what waterfall pricing is about. But we don't have a waterfall-based thing. So these would be 5 dimensions. For an event like bandwidth inside the managed application, this would be mapped to 5 different dimensions on the marketplace side. But we're not using this sample here. So let me just delete that stuff. Let me delete the comma here. So we have a well-formed JSON document. So this is now how it looks. The other thing which I would like to point out is the fact that we have a separation between how names are named in Azure Marketplace. So the dimension name here is what's used towards Microsoft, while this name here in the dictionary is the name that will be used inside your solution. So your solution tells the Microsoft Metered Billing Accelerator that dimension included, or A or so, was used. Let's just call these A, or no, let's just keep it that way. Well, let's call these A and B and C. And I'm sure the fact that I just renamed these here will bite me later, because I will forget that I did that. And then we'll be wondering what the heck is going on. Anyway, so my solution here basically calls these dimensions, dimension A, dimension B, and dimension C. And towards Marketplace, we use the official names, which are those ones, because those are the ones, as I said, which are included in, which are configured in Marketplace. Cool. So this information, this is great. So the plan is done. The plan is done. The custom attribution ID is done. However, what's missing is the metering configuration, because up until now, we do not yet have the REST endpoint for what we call the shared access, as the shared resource broker, and we do not have the AMQP endpoint, and we don't have the key vault, which contains all our bits and pieces. So let's now pause this video and create a new one here.